Welcome to the Uncensored Self Podcast. I am your host, Ryan Gillen, and this is a space where women who value achievement, success, accomplishment, and wealth, but also crave happiness, love, joy, and deep fulfillment come to remember that we get to have both. Not by doing more, but by being more of who we truly are. In this show, we explore identity, energy, alignment, and embodiment because you didn't come here to follow someone else's rules. You came to right your own. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Uncensored Self Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Gillen, and it is the first podcast of 2026. Happy New Year. I am so excited to be with you here this morning because I have a really good lineup for you for the month of January. But I'm going to start with something I think is going to change the tone for the entire year. Change the tone, quite honestly, for your entire life. And one of the things that I've been sharing a lot on social media, if you follow me over there, is that like this year's new year just showed up very differently for me. It showed up in this way of like, I'm not making massive changes. I don't have to like push this giant reset button. I'm just continuing to deepen the foundation and deepen the roots of what I built in 2025. And so in that, I do still like the energy of new energy, right? Like I like using the excuse, I'm using air quotes, right? The excuse of a new year to be like, okay, it's new. Like I want to use that fresh start energy. But the reason why I'm telling you this and I'm starting here is because if you don't feel that way, because there is a lot of research to show that like a new year in the middle of winter was clearly created by a man, because it's not technically a new year, right? Like winter is, if you go by the seasons, if you're really rooted in that, if you're rooted in nature, winter is a time of dormancy, right? It's a time of hibernation. It's a time of being quiet, right? Moving less. That's why there's more dark, right? Different things like that. So if you feel inspired because it's a new year, game the fuck on. If you don't, it is okay, because technically the new year, again, depending on what you read and what you watch and what you believe, is in spring, right? The spring equinox is actually the beginning of the new year when things start to come to life. So for me, because nothing in life has meaning except for the meaning I give it, I'm choosing this year to use this fresh start energy of like, okay, all right, what is really important to me? What am I anchoring into this year? What are the roots that I want to go really, really deep, right? What I noticed, speaking of roots and the way that works, and there's been a lot of conversations about roots. I have a friend and a client, Kristen, who is a financial planner who tells the whole belief system she has about money and roots. I had a girlfriend come over the other day and bring a bottle of wine. I don't drink, but she brought a bottle of wine that had roots on it. Like this has really been resonating for me. But when we think about roots, it's going deep. And I have spent a lot of my life, and I imagine you have as well, focusing on the branches, focusing on the flowers, focusing on the leaves, right? Focusing on how big is the tree? Is it big enough? Is it, all of that. Like, again, the optics, what we can see. But when you start to do this work, and when I say this work, I refer to it as the energy game. But for me, it's the inner work, right? It's universal law. It's really understanding your own power as the creator of your reality. And a lot of people call this different things. But as I started doing this work, I realized that the leaves, the branches, the flowers, whatever the tree is growing is because of the health of its roots. So when we just focus on what the tree is growing, and so in this instance, it might be money, it might be a job title, right? Something you want to achieve outside of you. If you're just focused on that and you're not focused on the roots, you're not going to grow the results that you desire, because the roots are what are feeding the tree. The roots and the soil that it is surrounded by is what is feeding the tree. And so if the roots aren't solid and they aren't deep and they aren't really rooted in, and the soil isn't being tended and taken care of, what the fruit is mediocre. And for me, I've produced a lot of mediocre fruit in my life. And I'm okay saying that. I used to not be okay saying that. I also want to share that with you. I used to not be okay with saying that I produced mediocre fruit when at one point, I had a 6-figure salary for over 15 years, that I grew $1 million business in 3 years. I used to want to make excuses for that. But all of that fruit was fucking mediocre because the roots weren't good. The soil wasn't good. It wasn't being tended properly. So yes, we grew fruit of a $1.2 million year, but the fruit was fucking rotten, right? Like we grew fruit of a 6-figure salary, but we were giving the fruit away to everybody else and forgetting to eat the fruit myself, right? So I'm going to get off my tree metaphor this morning. This has nothing to do with my outline, but I'm just rolling today. But really getting into radical ownership, because starting a new year, if that's the energy you're taking, it's, I have an opportunity to own this year. I have an opportunity to decide who the fuck I'm going to be. I have the opportunity of how I'm going to show up. I have the opportunity to create a radically different experience of my life here on this planet if I so choose. But the only way that I have learned to do this is to take radical fucking ownership. Okay. And so what is radical fucking ownership? Because that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. But I want to make sure that, radical fucking ownership. You cannot be the victim and the creator at the same time. I'm going to say that for you again. You cannot be the victim of life circumstances and the creator of your reality at the same time. Okay. So if there is an area of your life that is not thriving, maybe it is your relationships, maybe it is your health, maybe it is your business, maybe it's your finances, right? In some area, right? We have to own the fact that we are the ones who grew that fruit. If I have a shitty romantic relationship, which I did, right? I had to own the part that I played in growing fruit that wasn't of my highest and best service. I had to take ownership of that. And we live in a world where we say the word ownership, but it's not actually ownership, right? What we say is, well, that person over there, they're not behaving correctly. They're not treating me right. They're not doing the things that I want them to do. They're not showing up in the way that I want them to. Therefore, my relationship is failing and it's not my fault because look at all the things they're doing wrong, right? That is not ownership. That is not ownership. Taking your toys and going home because everything that person over there is doing is wrong is not taking ownership. It's taking your toys and going home, because what's going to happen, wherever you go, there you are. So you're going to take that victim mentality of people. Somebody can treat me poorly. Somebody could not respect me. Somebody could not speak to me the way I wanted to. Somebody could not be the partner I desire them to be into my next relationship, instead of what am I contributing to this thing that isn't the way that I want it to be? What am I contributing to this area of my life? And again, contributing in a lot of different ways. Sometimes it is contributing in our actions. Sometimes we have to fucking own that our actions are not aligned, right? But a lot of times we're not owning our energy. We're not owning the fact that there's a part of me that still allows myself to be an energetic match to this area of my life that I do not like. I allow myself to be an energetic match to not having a body that I really love and am proud of and take good care of. I allow myself to be an energetic match to a relationship where my needs and wants and desires aren't being met. I allow myself to be an energetic match to a job that doesn't allow me to use my gifts. I allow myself to be an energetic match to a business that drains me more than it fuels me. And this is triggering as fuck, especially for high achievers, because, but Ryan, I would never intentionally create these things. Of course you didn't. You did not intentionally create these things, but just because you didn't do it intentionally doesn't mean it didn't happen, right? Just like when somebody hurts your feelings, say you get into an argument with your spouse and they hurt your feelings and they say that wasn't my intention. Cool. I understand that wasn't your intention, but that was the result. That's what I'm experiencing because of that. So your intention wasn't to hurt my feelings, but I'm experiencing hurt feelings, right? So your intention wasn't to create a body that you haven't moved and taken care of in years. Your intention wasn't to create a relationship that isn't fulfilling. Your intention wasn't to create a job that actually became a prison, right? That I understand that those were not your intentions. That doesn't mean that that's not what that's not what you've created. So that's what I'm really going to break down for you, because this is really confronting for us as high achievers, right? This is super fucking confronting because, again, externally, we are winning, right? Externally, everybody comes to us to solve all of their problems. Externally, everybody else thinks we have our shit together, right? We are the person running the thriving business, right? We are the person sitting in that corner office. We are that person living in that home, in that neighborhood, driving that car. We are that person. And so it's confronting for us to say, well, I can create all this, but why can't I create this thing, right? Because it hits the ego. It hits our ego, the human part of us that says, look at what I've done. Look at what I have done. You can't tell me, Ryan, that it's my fault that guy keeps being a fucking asshole to me, or these clients keep treating me like shit, or, I can't control the interest rates. I can't control the economy. I can't control the industry. I can't control what other people do. And it's so confronting. But I'm going to tell you exactly how I confronted this and exactly how I coach my clients through this, okay? Because when you are smart, when you are capable, when you are powerful, when you are relied on by others, right, we're the ones solving the problems. But the problem problem, I don't like the word problem, the gap here is that when you're the one solving the problem, you're also not the one responsible for the problem. If you're constantly solving problems for everybody else all of the time, it's not your problem. It's that employee that can't get their shit together, right? It's that spouse that can't get their shit together. It's the coach of that kid's sport team that can't get their shit together. It's that client, right? It's that employee, right? Those I can't be responsible for other people, right? But and I know this to be true because I'm in the process of doing it, and I do it every fucking day. But when you are 100% responsible for your life, it is deeply fucking uncomfortable because you have to confront all of the areas of your life when you are not operating at your highest and best, where you are tolerating, right? It forces you to confront the mistakes that you've made, and I don't even really like the word mistakes, but for a lot of us, it's it. I have to say that this thing, so I always like to use my business partnership for this and really taking ownership of the part that I played in my business partnership that went very south, right? It ended very poorly, but I have to own the fact that I said yes to that business partnership, that I went along with things. I saw red flags and I ignored them. And I assumed because she had made more money than me and she had been in business for longer than me, that she knew more than me, right? I pretended like I didn't know what I was doing and I gave somebody else the power. So I was an active participant in that going south, right? That was an active participant. I was chasing money. I was chasing notoriety. I was chasing, a stage. I wanted to skip steps. I thought it was going to make my life easier. That's not a reason to enter a fucking business partnership. So I have to take ownership of that, right? That's what we're talking about here is where are we taking ownership? The messes that we created, right? Choices that we're not proud of, right? Maybe you did take a job just because the pay was good and you fucking hate it. And now you're embarrassed that you made that decision, right? But you knew that it wasn't, you took it purely for the money, right? And you have to own the fact that I made this choice that then created this situation. And when I made a choice that wasn't aligned with my highest and best, I then put myself on a timeline, on a trajectory, on a series of events that created these circumstances, okay? And the reason why I'm starting here with you and I'm leaning in so hard at the beginning of the year is because the thing that I did doing in the Create 2026 sessions, and these sessions are really fucking powerful. If you haven't booked one yet, you absolutely need to. But when end of year reflection brings a lot of clarity, right? When we can look back and own the parts, this is where I was trying too hard. This is where I said yes and I wanted to say no. This is where I followed somebody else's blueprint or plan, even though it didn't feel aligned. It's going to bring that clarity. And I, like I said, use this time of year if it feels good to you. But when we look back honestly, we do have to look at the parts of our life that we're not proud of, right? The parts that just aren't you, okay? And so you can't claim an incredible life, an incredible business, an incredible relationship while refusing to own your role in what didn't work. Those two things can't happen at the same time. You can't say, I'm the creator of my reality and I'm creating this incredible life and I'm creating this incredible business and I know at the end of this year I'm going to have all the money in the bank, I'm going to be driving the car and I'm going to be in the corner office and my husband and I are finally getting our shit together and I'm going to start working out again. Yes, 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 yes. Without saying it was your choice to stay in bed and not get out of bed last year and fucking work out. It was your choice to not do the nervous system regulation work. It was your choice to not invest in that coaching program you should have. It was your choice to not fire that employee that isn't doing their work. You don't get to have both. You don't get to skip ownership and start from here. Believe me, I fucking tried. So until you own your power, you cannot create intentionally. So this is why we're starting our year here. Because again, the whole theme I have all my clients focused on right now is Create 2026. Don't set goals and hope that you fucking hit them. Don't create plans and follow them. Create. You are a creator. Your thoughts, your words, your actions, your feelings are creating. You get to choose the life that you have. But again, you don't get to have both. So here's what I also want to be clear on. Ownership is not, I want to talk about what ownership is not. Ownership is not going on years of a healing journey, because I think sometimes we get caught up here. I'm going to be real honest with you. We get caught up in, okay, all right, I got to go back and I got to fix every single motherfucking thing that I fucked up, right? I need to understand why do I keep making these choices? Why do I keep choosing the same argument with my spouse all the time? Why do I continue to go to a job that I hate? Why am I so afraid to apply for that job that I want? Why am I so afraid to swing big in my business and do something different, right? Like, this is not about like, let's go spend the next year figuring out all the ways that you fucked up and let's go do all this healing work. That is actually not a belief system I have. There's a lot of people that have that belief system. I'm the creator of my reality. I don't want to spend years digging around in the fucking past. That's not important to me. So we're not going to do that here, okay? Again, not digging through all of your childhood trauma. I hope if you have childhood trauma, you're getting the counseling and the support that you need through that, through a mental health professional, that you're handling that appropriately. But that's not owning That's not ownership, right? It's not rehashing every bad thing that ever happened. It's actually very clear. It's not really about blame or reliving the pain. I need to go back and figure out why that marriage didn't work. I need to go back and figure out why I let that person treat me so poorly. I need to go back and figure, no, that's not what ownership is. Ownership is admitting that life is not happening to you. Life is not happening to you. So some examples of that, staying with a horrible boss for a paycheck. Okay, that is life not happening to you. You're choosing to stay in that job. You're the most fucking capable person you know. You know you could get a different one, right? You know you could get a different job. You know there's people calling you all the fucking time to go work for them, right? But you continue to stay because the paycheck is really good. That is a choice. You have to own that. You have to own that, right? Staying in a relationship that isn't treated well. It's not happening to you. You continue to stay if somebody's not treating you well. And this could be a friendship. This could be a marriage. This could be a romantic relationship. This could be a professional relationship. But if you are not being treated well and you know you're not being treated well and you continue to put yourself in that situation, that's ownership. I'm choosing to be here. Ownership means you choose to get up every day and stay, right? You participated even if it sucked. So again, you can't say they treated me badly without also owning I stayed in a place where I was not treated well. That is ownership. So I honestly think you can do this with just your current stuff. If you have real big T trauma, if you have some big shit you haven't dealt with, yes, you should go do that. I'm assuming most of you here have dealt with that, right? And we are dealing with something, it's the more surface level shit, right? It's the more looking around my life today, when I look at the core areas of my life, when I look at my career and my business, when I look at my relationships, when I look at my health, when I look at how I spend my time, right? When I look at all of those things, what part did I play in getting here? What part did I play in this burnout, in this stress, in this overwhelm, in this chaos, right? That's ownership. Not I got to go figure out why I keep creating these situations. Again, sometimes that is necessary. And if that's your path, God bless you. But that's not what I'm producing. That's not what I'm suggesting. That's not what I've experienced, right? It's really more about, okay, what ownership did I play in these areas of my life that I didn't like? Okay, that's what we're talking about here. So I also want to be clear that this is not victim blaming, because this is also something that tends to trigger the fuck out of people when we talk about ownership, right? There are people who have been assaulted, right? There are crimes that have been committed, right? People have been harmed. Okay, I understand that. And so this is where people get so hung up on law of attraction and universal law. Like, how could I possibly have attracted this horrible, traumatic thing in my life? And I think there's a difference between energetic responsibility and blame. Okay, so blame, it's your fault. You wanted to be attacked. You wanted to be a victim of a heinous crime. That's not what we're saying here. Energetic responsibility is, remember, what we resist persists. The more that we try to protect ourselves against something, the more that we bring it into our awareness. This is actually why, as a society, guys, we have a war on drugs and a war on crime and a war on sex trafficking and a war on, all of these different things. And all that's happening is more harm. All that's happening because you can't fight, right? What you resist persists. You are what you focus on. If you focus on the thing that you hate, it is going to take over your entire life, right? So how does this happen? I'm going to tell you a story. Maybe this will be helpful for you. So there's a person in the cul-de-sac of my neighborhood who takes a lot of security measures in their property, right? They have a lot of security cameras and different things like that. They have all these signs that walk through their yard, all this different stuff, right? A lot of security measures. And they've been broken into. I think they've lived in this neighborhood for about as long as I have, so about 6 years, 5.5, maybe a little less. They've been broken into probably 6 or 7 times that I know of, right? Their home's been broken into, a car's been broken into, somebody's tried to come in through their back door, like scary shit, right? I live 2 houses down. I have 0 security measures about, locking doors and being a responsible human, right? But there's not a Ring camera. I don't have a security system or anything like that, other than the basics that were already installed in the house when I moved in here. And at least once a month, I sleep with my garage door open overnight. One of the kids leaves the garage door open and it doesn't get closed, right? We've never had any issues at all. No, 0 issues with weird shit. Why? We live 2 houses apart. Why is one person experiencing break-ins and weird and scary shit and the person 2 doors down not? The person who takes less security measures. Because it's not something I fight about. I don't think about. I don't wake up in the morning terrified of all these things. I'm not checking my cameras to see who's knocking on my door all the time. I'm not making sure that nobody can get into my house. Because what we resist persists. Universal law, right? Responsibility. If I continue to fight against this thing in my life, I'm inviting it in. I have to take that fucking responsibility. So and let me take a more business style example. So, and I'm hoping you can see how this relates to traumatic things, right? So I work with a lot of real estate agents. About 60% of my business are realtors. And a lot of them, one of their biggest challenges is their clients are assholes, right? They'll get a lot of clients, a fair number of clients, but there will be people who aren't kind to them, or people who don't respect the profession, or people who want to negotiate over prices, or people who have unreasonable expectations. And they'll be frustrated by that, and they'll be like, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. Well, again, you continue to take clients. Like, the number one thing when somebody tells me they're in the middle of a shitty transaction, I will ask them from the beginning, did you know it was not aligned? And 95% of the time they say yes. So you took an aligned client, a misaligned client, because you were afraid there wasn't another one coming, because they were a referral from somebody and you didn't want to seem ungrateful, because you're not busy enough to turn down business, because if you don't take the business now, you don't know where it's coming next, right? That's what you've been told. That's what the industry has painted for you. So you take the shitty client. Right? So you're not putting out shitty energy, but you are an energetic match to shitty clients because you think that is just something that happens in the world. Part of being a realtor is sometimes having shitty clients, right? Part of being a human in the world is sometimes you're available for being attacked or assaulted. And so for me, energetically, it's just like, I focus on what I want. I focus on what I want to create. If I'm the creator of my reality, why am I continuing to safeguard against all this shit that I don't want? And I know some of you right now are thinking, right, that's really irresponsible. This is really irresponsible. You're not protecting yourself against anything. Well, I'm just not protecting myself against those things in the way the world has taught us to protect ourselves against those things. But quite frankly, let's be really fucking honest. Is the way the world's protecting itself fucking working? Do you feel protected? Do you feel safer doing the things that the world has taught us to do? I sure as fuck don't. So I am choosing to protect myself by owning the fact that I'm the one fucking creating my reality. And the only thing that can ever, ever, ever show up in my reality is what I am an energetic match for. So if my thoughts, my words, my feelings, my actions create, I think health. I think abundance. I think safety. I think an incredible life. I think that there's more good in the world than bad. I think that people want to pay me and do good business with me. I think that people want to hear what I have to say, right? Do you see this like radical ownership thread in here? You cannot, like what you resist persists, what we focus on expands. Fear-based is going to attract more of what is feared. So let's talk about energetic ownership in business and money, okay? I think this is where, no, I have a whole lot. Ooh, this is a good one, guys. I'm just going back through my notes, jamming out over here. Ownership in business and money. So for me, my obsession was money. Okay. My obsession with money, I've actually been able to track it back to like the first time I remember being really distraught over my finances. I was 19 years old, right? I was literally a college kid. That's the first time I remember it. But I really thought that money was going to solve all my problems. As long as I had more than enough money to pay my bills and handle everything, that I would be fine. So I was obsessed with money. And what that obsession then very quickly became, my worthiness was my income. I'm actually only good enough if I have enough money, right? So it went from somewhat not unhealthy, but like, yeah, of course, obviously if I had bajillions of dollars sitting in a bank account, my problems would probably feel like less. We can all agree on that, right? But when it became, when it went from being a tool that was going to help solve my problem to my worthiness, I'm only good enough if I'm making a lot of money. I'm only worthy if I, have XYZ in the bank. I'm only worthy if I'm achieving based on the world's standards, led to me chasing money. Guys, I've said this a million times. What you chase runs away. I have to own that. I was chasing something so much. I use the example of my business partner, right? I was chasing money so much that I was willing to literally bet my life on something that was misaligned. Like, I have to own that, right? I have to own that. In 2021, I had a $1.2 million year, right? Successful based on the world's standards, but I wasn't happy. So yes, I can own the part that I created a $1.2 million year, but I also created the chaos that happened afterwards because it was misaligned. It was misaligned. I was an energetic match for it to all fall apart because it was never aligned anyway. So in order to sustain it would have killed me, quite frankly. And I mean that literally. I believe that stress and anxiety and overwhelm is quite literally slowly killing us. All the things that we're told are wrong with our body because of menopause and hormones, like, let's not kid. A big part of that is the constant stress and the chaos and the constant striving and chasing. I have to own that. You have to own that. We have to own that, right? We have to own that. So let me tell you some of the patterns I've noticed that we avoid owning, right? Taking jobs, clients, relationships. We knew we're not aligned, right? Continuing to go out on dates with people you don't fucking want to go out on dates with because I don't have anything else to do. What am I going to do? Sit at home by myself like a loser, right? That's you. That's why you keep going on so many bad first dates. Maintaining friendships for professional reasons. I see this a lot. I've done this. Right? I've done this. I'm maintaining this friendship because there's some professional ties here that I don't want to lose. Well, then why is that relationship toxic? Why does it trigger the fuck out of you? That's why, right? Choosing security over what you really want. I'm going to stay in this job because the bills are paid instead of I fucking hate it here and I want to go build this business, right? We have to own that. Staying in relationships, friendships, because I'm afraid that I can't make it on my own, because I'm afraid I'll never meet anybody else, because I'm afraid I don't know how I'll take care of my, yeah. But we are still part of that, and we have to own that, okay? We have to own that. Let me tell you some more stories. I got a couple stories for you, and then we'll wrap up. So I'm going to tell you a client story. So she is, this particular client, she's a realtor, and she, again, dealing with a lot of messy deals and some dishonesty, right? Like on the other side of the table, some people lying, some sellers disclosures issues. And so her question to me was, Ryan, how could I have created this? Like, I didn't create this. I don't lie. And again, it's not necessarily, well, I'm a liar, so I get lied to, right? So with this client is chronic worrying, right? Chronic worrying that she's not going to hit her goals, chronic worrying that she doesn't know where the next deal is coming from, fear of not hitting the goals, and then not being in the room and not being on the leaderboard, and then everybody's going to know I'm a loser, right? Again, knowing that some of the deals that she has taken in the past 90 days have been misaligned and have been taken because, again, I don't have anything else to do. So the I'll take energy, anything energy attracts messy deals, dishonesty, people who treat you like shit, people who don't respect your boundaries. That's what we have to own, because you're like, I can't control other people's behaviors. No, but when you're no longer an energetic match for it, because I'll take any deal, or I'll take any clients, or I'll take any opportunity, or I'll take any job because I don't know if the next one's gonna be better, attracts that. You allow yourself, you leave yourself energetically available for misalignment because the opportunity was misalignment from go, right? From go. And I honestly, I'll tell my own story, okay, not just tell clients' story, but like, I honestly think, I have to own my bankruptcy, right? My fear of being a failure, my fear of being exposed, becoming a fucking cliche, one of those people who has $1 million years and it all falls apart and she can't sustain it, and she got, this whatever person on the internet who took advantage of all these people, like all of that, fear of not being able to sustain the success, that is actually what created bankruptcy for me. What you resist persists. The idea of having nothing, of, to me, being a failure was so fucking terrifying. And I did everything I possibly could to not be a failure, that I quite literally created my own fucking nightmare. My desperation to not be a loser created the outcome. My desperation of not being a failure created the outcome. And again, this isn't about like, oh, look at all the things I did. It's like, okay, now that I can fucking own, yeah, I can see exactly how I created that. I can make sure I never fucking do it again, because now I can rebuild. Right? Now I know what sustainability looks like. Now I know what long-term integrity to myself looks like, right? But I have to own that my fear of everything falling apart is literally what led to everything falling apart. But when we have mixed energy, we create mixed results, right? We love owning hard work, hustle, sacrifice. Look how hard I work. Look at all the things look, I was willing to fucking do terrible, horrible things for this. Yes. Right? But then we avoid owning the fear. I was afraid that if I didn't take that job, I was afraid that if I left that relationship, I was afraid if I said that I was not okay, if I was afraid if I stood the ground on my commission that they were going to walk away, I was afraid that if I stood my ground on my rates that they were going to walk away, I was afraid that if I said this thing on the internet, people weren't going to like me. We don't like to own that as much, right? Our judgment. Whoo, this is a big one, guys. Our judgment of others. What we judge in others is actually what we judge in ourselves. If you judge people who have it easy, right? It's because you want it to be easy and you're pissed, right? When you judge people for anything, like for me, again, my judgment came through when I started doing this work was very much around how other people were doing business. I had a lot of thoughts about right and wrong in business, how you should do business, how you shouldn't do business, how you should treat people, how you should pay employees, what a successful business looked like. I had a lot of ego around that, right? So I judged anybody who wasn't doing it the way that I wanted to do it, or the way that I thought they should do it. You're doing it wrong. I can't believe they're fucking doing it. I can't believe that's not a business. That's not a real business, right? What kind of energy is that, guys? When I'm judging other people's businesses, like, why am I looking at somebody else's paper? I'm the creator of my reality. Why do I give a fuck what anybody else is doing? This is a big part of ownership. The judgment of others, of the way they're right and wrong. I'm better, this feeling of superiority. Or the flip side, the feeling of inferiority. They know more than I do. They're better than I am. They have more experience. All of that is mixed energy, and that mixed energy is creating your results, okay? Resentments. Resenting people that have it easy, resenting people that didn't have to work as hard as you, resenting people who have more money than you, resenting people who have a partner who can pay the bills and yours doesn't, right? Resenting people who are naturally skinny when you have to work hard on your body, resenting people who, whatever, have a happy relationship and you feel like you can't find your person. All of that resentment, again, what you resist persists, what you focus on expands, what you don't like in other people, you attract to yourself. This is ownership. This is ownership. Right? I'm going to give you this example. So this is how I teach this to my clients, right? We talk a lot about, when I teach the energy game, is the Wi-Fi signal, right? You are a walking Wi-Fi signal. You are actively putting out an energy all of the fucking time based on your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, right? Your expectations, thoughts, feelings, words, actions, belief systems, your programming, the industry. There's a lot that goes into that Wi-Fi signal, right? And so that Wi-Fi signal is what you put out into the world, and what you put out, you get back, right? Law of vibration, law of attraction, basic universal law. Not a shred of evidence in the world to refute those two things. Well, if your signal is one of fear and judgment and resentment 70% of time, and it's only one of love and excitement and abundance and magic 30% of the time, so you can attract the good things. You attract the clients, you attract the opportunities, you attract the friends, like you attract that one really nice date night, right? Every now and again it happens, but then 70% of the time you're over here in this negativity and this energy and this fear and this drama and this judgment of other people, and am I going to make it, and am I good enough, all this other stuff, right? And that's the mixed energy, mixed results. The opportunities that you attract mirror your dominant frequency. If your dominant frequency is one of judgment and fear and drama and not good enough, and what the fuck is wrong with people, and why do you suck so bad, and why are people assholes, and I don't understand what's happening here, that is what you are going to attract, and you have to own that. You have to own that, okay? You have to own that. The final thought I want to give you is around toxic positivity, because I've had several people in my inbox asking me about this. Ryan, this feels like just toxic positivity. I can't just ignore my problems. I can't just not think about the horrible things happening in the world or the horrible things happening in my life. That's not what I'm proposing here. I'm not saying that we avoid them. I'm saying that we own them. We own them. Because honestly, I did more avoiding before I started doing this work. I was angry and I shoved it aside. My feelings were hurt and I told no one, right? I was stressed out and overwhelmed and I refused to ask for help, right? I was experiencing a lot of unhappiness and told nobody and put on a happy face and pretended. Like, honestly, I think before I avoided my feelings more than I ever do now. Because now I see my feelings as information, as a signal. Something is wrong here. If this doesn't feel good, if somewhere in my body I'm experiencing a negative emotion, something is misaligned. And I don't always need to go fix that thing. It's just the awareness of it. So this isn't about ignoring toxic positivity or ignoring your problems or ignoring anything that needs to be handled in your life. It's fucking owning it. Own it and handle it. Own and handle your shit. Okay? Suppressing your emotions is way more toxic than actually feeling them and dealing with them. Right? To me, I think that silence and self-abandonment is way more of a problem than seeing the best in every single situation. But here's the truth, guys. Ownership requires honesty and emotional maturity and self-responsibility. And I believe you're completely capable of that, but it's confronting as fuck. I gotta tell you. But here's the thing, guys. You cannot be a victim and a creator at the same time. You have to choose. And ownership, radical ownership, is how you reclaim power. And then knowing what that power is how you create intentionally, okay? So I'm gonna close for you here. This isn't about shame. It's not about judgment. This is about telling the truth to yourself about yourself. I believe in my heart of hearts that we are all completely capable of designing lives we are obsessed with, businesses we are obsessed with, relationships we fucking love, bodies that we're proud of, longevity, like a life beyond our wildest fucking imagination. But we have to own our choices. We have to stop telling the sob story. We have to stop pretending to be a victim. We have to stop tolerating our own bullshit. So my invitation for you in 2026 is decide who you are being. Are you being the victim or are you being the creator? Because you can't be both. You don't get to be both. If you want to approach business, life, achievement, money, completely differently, the best place to start is in a Create 2026 session. Guys, these private sessions, I've held a handful of them now. Whew, they are so fire and they are so good and they are so powerful. Just sitting down with the workbook and the audio is really fucking powerful. I actually had an email the other day from somebody whose call is next week. And the email was like, holy bananas. Like, this in and of itself was so life-changing. Like, I can't wait to spend time with you. Somebody else struggled a little bit with the workbook, but as soon as we got on the phone and talked through it, she was like, these were the missing pieces. And now she is so fucking aligned with 2026. So these opportunities, these sessions are so cool and they're so powerful. They're only $197. They are completely private. I'm just really, really obsessed because it starts with ownership. If you want something different in 2026, and I don't just mean in your results, but in your life and the way you experience life and the way you experience success and the way you experience love and respect and money and joy and career and interaction with others, you got to take ownership. Create 2026 is a great place to start. I'll see you next week. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Uncensored Self podcast. If this conversation cracked something open for you, trust that that's the work. And share this episode with a woman in your life who's ready to stop performing and start creating. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe, leave a review. It helps this message reach the women who need it most. Remember, you're the creator. The rules are yours. And your uncensored self, she already knows what to do. Keep leading, keep listening, keep becoming.